I think, first of all, good morning. I think, we focus too much on the Fed. I think the Fed, they have done a lot already. I think what they said was not, I think from my point of view, a big surprise. We know the weakness in the U.S. We also know they're thinking about yield curve control. But at the end of the day, the next big move in markets up or down will not be triggered by the Fed, but by the U.S. economy. And I think there the jury is still out. Because I think, you see some improvement in the unemployment data, but when you look at the spending on daily data, we have some daily data on spending is still pretty much 10, 20% below normal. So there is an improvement from incredibly low levels, but I think there is still a lot of weakness in the U.S., and it's difficult to justify the current valuation if the economy doesn't get back to a normal level of activity. And I think on that point, I think the jury is still out. So I think it's better to be a little bit more cautious and to wait until the dust settles. And because I think for now, I think it's very difficult to say. But our view is to be more cautious, and we don't think that this decline we've seen in market is just a one bad day. It's probably a phase of consolidation after a very strong rally that we have seen recently.
The liquidation of money market funds that we've seen expressed in the Liquidating numbers here, $30.8 billion pulled out of money market funds. That's the fourth consecutive week of net redemptions. That money has been finding its way into equity funds, as you know, and the purchasing of equity ETFs. Do you think that trend then reverses from here, or dissipates, or what do investors do who've seen this as the right approach?
I think flows tend to follow markets more than the other way around. So I think if we see this decline in market to continue, I think this will probably stop. So I'm not too much worried about flows. I think what is clear, though, is that if the situation stabilizes, I think the equities valuation are not particularly attractive, but I think there is a lot of many investors that they have missed this rally, and they're actually pretty willing to re-engage. But I think it's really depends on the economy, depends on especially what's going on the second waves in the U.S. But I think if there is an improvement, there is a lot of money that can be invested in the equity market. But we don't think that this is going to happen in the next, let's say, 2 or 3 months or something like that.
Luca, I want to ask you about that second wave, because it seems to have come pretty quickly. If you take a look at the cases across from Texas to Arizona and California, for someone who's done a lot of ocean swimming, I was sitting back and thinking, could this be the second wave so quickly? And the reality is waves can hit very quickly, back to back, barely giving you time to catch your breath. Do you think this is the second wave first up? And if so, what will the response be from the US administration? Because at this point, Steven Mnuchin's saying, well, we won't close the economy down like we did initially. If that is the case, how do investors price the second wave?
Well, first of all, when you look at globally, I think there have been very few second waves. So I think we may be a little bit optimistic on that front, but I think the point here is that the government can, in a way, force people to go back to work, but they can't force them to spend. It's about the fear about going out and all these kind of things. So it's very difficult, I think, for the government to control that side of the equation. Of course, they can increase the fiscal stimulus, but it's difficult in an election year, and a lot has been done already. So I think for the U.S. administration, it will be very, very difficult to do anything very significant if there is a second wave, and obviously we hope this is not going to happen. So I think it's really, again, a lot has been done already. The fiscal deficit is going to be close to 20% this year, and I think the Democrats will not be willing to do too much because, of course, they don't want to help Trump to win the elections in November.